kill him. I'll deal with the children.
Hey, what's going on, guys? It's your boy Electric Jack. Just plugging in for, well, I guess I can't say the weekly Nuts and Notes, but it is the Not Too Notes High. We're doing a series review, guy, and we're going to talk about a little bit about all the different parts of the manga, anime, the parts that I appreciated, that I liked, and the parts that I felt like could have been written a little bit better or could have ended a different way. So guys, please don't forget to hit the subscribe and that notification bell so you always get an update to Electric content. And make sure you voice your opinion, share it. I love to hear it. And we're trying to build this channel back up, guys. So please, hang in there. We're going to get back to where we were, guys. So, man, it seems like so long ago that we had the Seven Deadly Sins started, just back, I think it was back, I guess the manga started probably back in 14 or 15, somewhere around. And then I do remember the anime series aired on Netflix, at least here in America, in 2016. So, guys, the end of 2016, this thing's been going, we've been on like a 4 or 5 year journey with these guys, and it's been a credit. And shout out to Nakaba Suzuki for giving us a great story, at least most of the time, and putting in a lot of effort and bringing it to the Western audience. Netflix is what brought Seven Deadly Sins to the U.S., Western audience. And I know for certain I did. I got hooked after I watched the first season. Originally, I remember being a little bit skeptical because the thumbnail, it just seemed like it was drawn like Americanized anime, and me in particular, I don't really care for Americanized anime drawings. Things such as Avatar: Last Airbender. I know people want to kill me about that. I've heard it's a fantastic series. I just have no interest based on the art style. I'm sorry, I'm like that, guys. But yeah. And so eventually, just one night, I just thought I'd take a chance on it, and I was hooked. I was hooked from the first 3 episodes, guys. And that sense of discovery and wonder that I kind of wish, that I could find another one, because it's always a good feeling, if you know what I mean. It's always a good feeling when you have that sense of discovery and wonders of a new anime or manga that you've discovered. And, man, it was just great. It was a great time. I met my fiance then at the time. I introduced her to the Sins while we were snowed in one day. We kind of fell in love during that time. It was a great. So Seven Deadly Sins has a lot of very fond memories for me, and a lot of great things. It came out of a time where I was a little bit lost, wondering, and I found some hope. And it's just been a hell of a ride. And it's probably why that I've stuck with it so long, just because of the things I was going through when it came out, who I was with, and what got done at the time. And so, man, what a series. Overall, I would like to say this is one of my favorite series, a great series. Arguably, probably not arguably, it is one of my top 5 anime manga. In my opinion, to me, maybe not overall, but to me, I'm gonna put it in my top 5. Obviously, there's other great. I don't want to get into the top. My top tier, because that would be a whole nother video. I can do a debate on my top 5. But it's up there, and I love the Sins. And man, it started out fantastic. Just kind of low key too, very subtle. There were this band of criminals that were on the run, and their drawings look different. And then this kid shows up. This kid being Meliodas, and kind of like, okay, what's going on? And as you kind of progress through the story, and you start to wonder and start to notice that everything with this kid is not I guess you would say kosher. It's not. There's something he's hiding. Namely, I remember the very first season when if you guys remember when he got poisoned by when he was fighting. I forgot which that Deadly Night, because you remember all the Holy Knights were against him at first. And he was poisoned in bed, and then at one point when he was poisoned on his sick bed, someone tried to take the sword hilt from behind him. We all know sword. That sword hilt was part of Meliodas' demon sword back when he was a member of Ten Commandments, but we'll get to that a little bit later. But yeah, we had no idea what the heck Meliodas was and what was going on, but we do know when he was sick, when they tried to take his sword, he instantly got up and his eyes changed a different color, and a small black mark appeared on his head. And so I remember seeing that scene. I was like, holy crap, like what what is this guy? What is our hero? And then they start uncovering everything as the plot goes on. You had Hendrickson, who got possessed by a demon, and of course Dreyfus as well, and then the sacrifices they made, and then you had Hendrickson pretty much injecting the new generation of Holy Knights with demon blood so they could be increase their magical powers, but it backfired. You remember they all turned demons, but you start learning out a little bit more about the Demon Clan and demons throughout the series, the second half, especially of season 1, than you originally do. And you're introduced to so many characters. You have that Gil Thunder is another character who I really fucking loved. Gil Thunder, I was actually at one point contemplating naming one of my children Little Gil, because I just love the Little Gil that Meliodas calls him. And so that's one character that I do hate. Got the short end of the stick. I feel like after that first season, he kind of just was worthless. They yamched him, as I like to say. And so, characters like Gil Thunder, who were super badass, I'm kind of probably going to rewatch the first season just so I can see his awesome scenes. And, yeah, man, I mean, he had, the scenes were great. You had King Arthur, who was introduced as a 16-year-old kid, who we knew, and it was King Arthur that came along, and we knew that he had some kind of special latent ability that had yet to be unlocked. So that was another thing that was part of the story. Merlin, we saw Merlin, and we didn't see her uncovered at first until we saw her that it was a woman. She was indeed one of the sins. So, that sense of discovery of finding out that this was not only a story based off, biblical, Buddhist and Hinduism and other, religious denominations, but it was also borrowing heavily from Arthurian legend, and that's kind of that whole mix of fantasy, religion, and everything mixed together. I feel like that's great, and what an interesting topic that, and an interesting area that Nakaba Suzuki could explore and explore a little bit more with his fantasy based manga. And so the first season was great. You had Hawk's sacrifice. You had Meliodas do his revenge counter for the first time with all the powers reflected back at Hendrickson. And so, the first season, half of the manga ended very well. It did. It led us to wonder, and it opened the door for what could be so much more. However, things, began to go off the rails a little bit. The second season and throughout that manga was great. So we see Meliodas and what he does, Dreyfus, and Hendrickson releasing the seal in the Demon Clan, Dreyfus, of course, being possessed. And, you see all that, and you see the rise of the Ten Commandments and how they come. And so the Ten Commandments, I felt, was great. That was a badass way to introduce a group of knights that would rival our Holy Knights, our Seven Deadly Sins. And I also thought it was ironic how the Ten Commandments, which is, the biblical rules that we follow, that God laid before us for humans to follow. I always thought that was ironic that the Ten Commandments was the name of the Demon Clan's race, and the Demon Clan's knight of or a band of elite knights, and then the good kingdom, the Holy Knights, their best squad was the Seven Deadly Sins, which are the direct competition, direct opposite of the Ten Commandments and what you should and should not do throughout your life. And so I always thought that was ironic, and I didn't know what kind of message they were trying to send. It always seems like sometimes that Japanese, the manga and anime seem to take a stab at Western religion and Christianity a lot of the times. I don't know if he might have been doing a lot of underlying thinking, a lot of saying like, hey, Ten Commandments, and hey, the religious people, the ones are usually the ones that are doing the evil. And it seems like that way in our world. People that have used religion for powerful reasons seem to use it for control sometimes. And so maybe he was trying to set that limit, that the Ten Commandments, that's a way to control and stuff. And so who knows? It seems like he has a lot of thoughts about different religions and mixing them. And who knows? I just find it ironic that he switched a lot of the things. And it's like Seven Deadly Sins. That's how we live. We almost live by sins. And we have the Ten Commandments that are pretty much oppressive, and try to teach us how to live. But a lot of times it's hard. It's hard to abide by those. And so that I feel like that's a really cool thought that could have been could have had a big hand in developing this series. And so you had the whole battle of the Holy War, the beginning of the Holy War start, as the elite demons were being out, and our sins get wrecked initially. They get wrecked for the first time in a series of overpowered beings. We see our heroes get wrecked. And there's nothing to do about it. I mean, Gallon slashes through him. He wrecks the entire crew. And we see these guys. We see him having, like I said, I'm not going to go through play-by-play for the manga, but I am going to go over some of my favorite, instrumental points of the manga and anime. And so, at this point, our sins, for first, they have to go train. There's a whole little training arc, which I think is important that we needed to get for the sins to show that they were vulnerable yet, despite, who they were. And, just the fact, loving that these guys were all 7 sinners that were sentenced to death or life, that were able to exchange that for service to the country they were imprisoned by. And they were all, situational. They were all prisoners or labeled their sins via indirect reasons, whether they were trying to save someone or do something, such as like Dien, and Gother, or mistakes for lack of action, such as King. And then you have guys, misinterpreted like Bond, and then Meliodas, who, destroyed the kingdom, but in his rage, it was, first of all, he didn't destroy the kingdom. The kingdom was already murdered by demons, but he did destroy, I guess, the physical standing of, in his rage, once his first lover, Ellie. And so, Elizabeth, from that time period, I should say, was killed. And so you see all these things, and then the second season of the anime and this part of the manga is when you finally start to discover a little bit more about Meliodas, Elizabeth, and their history and what exactly Meliodas is. As you soon see, after they have this, they go to the training arc, and we see several mentions of, Meliodas' lost treasure, since everybody's found the divine treasure, and Meliodas still hasn't had him. And Merlin obviously knows where this is, and she said she took it and sealed it away. Oh, well, first of all, Meliodas sold it to take it on loan for his bar, the boar hat. But then Merlin found it another time in another kingdom and kept it for him. However, at one time, this is when we get to discover what Meliodas is. Meliodas, when the 7 deadly sins were accused of killing the great holy knight, which was his brother, who we all know they actually killed. They were instantly seized, and the castle was surrounded by holy knights. At this point, this whole siege, a little girl was hurt. That little girl being Elizabeth. At this point, Meliodas almost lost it. This was at a time when he still had all his demonic power. At that time, Merlin knocked him out and sealed away a lot of his demonic power. So the Meliodas up to this point that you're seeing has been, severely depowered, severely. And at this point, at the end of the Druid training arc, we see Meliodas get his demonic power unlocked, if he could, move past that love. And he decided that he couldn't move past, but that was that very love that strengthened him. And was able to regain his demonic powers, which completely blackened out the entire sky. And so then that's when we get pretty much, I like to say, Meliodas Prime, because, the real deal is there. The real deal is here. And so then, at that point, we get to, Meliodas, he gets Merlin to transport, and I love this part. He gets her to teleport him, and he's like, I'm going to do it for a couple of seconds. He's like, that's all I need. And he just goes and gets transported and wrecks Gallon's ass, and just beats his ass, slams him around, knocks him up a little bit, and then gives the 7 deadly sins, the 10 commandments a warning that if you guys want to pick up where we left off 3,000 years ago, we can do that. You better be ready, because the 7 deadly sins are coming after you. So that's when all this hope here, we realize that Meliodas, these demons are his brethren, and the leader of these 10 commandments, Zeldris, is in fact Meliodas' little brother, who assumed leadership after Meliodas, who is in fact a full-blooded demon and the son of the Demon King, defected from the 10 commandments when he was the lover and commandment of love. He was the leader and commandment of love, and he defected and killed 2 of the other commandments on his way out, as he defected the stigma, who was, of course, with his love, Elizabeth, the angel, the goddess. And that's what started their story. And then we soon learned that Meliodas and Elizabeth are caught in an endless cycle of reincarnation and death. At least Elizabeth is. She has to grow old and be born and fall in love with only Meliodas over and over again. And Meliodas has to watch her and find her every time she's reborn, fall in love with her, and watch her die. And so it's a very heartbreaking, endless cycle of what they're going through, of what they have to go through. And you start finding out a little bit that, Meliodas is pretty much really just a tortured soul. And so at that point, there's another great Faisal festival, and Meliodas is then, at the end of it, ambushed and killed by the Ten Commandments and finished off by his brother Estarasha, who is the other little brother who was taller, who has full counter. Only he full counters physical attacks. So at this point, we see Meliodas, and he is then shortly goes through purgatory, has a conversation with his dad, and we find out that every time Meliodas dies, even though he's cursed, he's immortal. Every time he dies and goes to purgatory, a little bit more of his emotions are eaten away by his father, and he reverts back to his old self. So we learn that Meliodas' greatest fear in the world is reverting back to his old self. He is ashamed of his old history of who he used to be, and we find out that Meliodas was revered as one of the most evil, vile, brutal demons to ever have existed. And this is another thing that I've always spoken to some of my friends about. I really wish we could get a prequel series of Meliodas or at least a one shot or something of Meliodas as he was the leader of the Ten Commandments. Now, we've seen various clips and panels with him as leader, but I like to see, because we always hear how ruthless of a leader he was, how he was most vile, how he was in line to be the next demon king. And I would like to see that Meliodas compared to the loving, ever-go-lucky, friendly version we see. So when Meliodas comes, he is everybody is rejoiced to see him. The sins are, but he is obviously a little bit different than he was before he was killed. He is now taking pleasure in death, as he, when he went to fight, Melascula, all those people. He went to fight Mons Speed, and he was having joy. And when he killed the demon infested Dreyfus, he smiled. And even after the demon, submitted and, didn't want to attack anymore, he then uppercutted that demon and obliterated it. And so, as we all know, that he was a stand-in for the original commandment. It wasn't, but Meliodas pretty much shamed him. It was like, you just a stand-in. You're not even real commandment. You just stand-in. And soon after this, we see Meliodas. Everyone's like, is Meliodas a bit different? He would never take delight in killing. And eventually, he breaks down Elizabeth and tells her that he's like, it was weird. I killed him, and for the first time in a while, like I felt pleasure doing it. And he starts crying and breaks down. He's like, I don't want to revert back to who I was. And we skip a little bit of time. We go through a lot of other different things in the sins. Commandments get defeated. Bond has a strong moment where he does it. Of course, one of the best fights is Estarasa versus Escanor. We meet him, Alliance and the Pride. He makes his eventual debut, and he is great. With his high noon powers, he wrecks Estarasa. And so we see, we pick up later to see Estarasa in a healing chamber eventually, with his detainers, his former teachers, who were, these two great demons, Pacifier Demon and Chandler. They watch over them. And we see then that the sins are going to Camelot, because Camelot has been taken over by the demon forces. That's where Gelters has set his throne. And we see these guys go towards it to save it, and then Elizabeth gets captured. And so in order to save Elizabeth from Melascula traps Meliodas pretty much in this dark dimension, eternal coffin. He loses it in order. That's the only way to break out. He has to release all of his demonic powers. So when he breaks out, Meliodas is then in his assault Meliodas mode. This is the mode, the form he took while he was leader of the Ten Commandments. Pretty punk rocker look, dark magic all over him, clawed feet. And this right here is when Marilyn puts a perfect cube over him and Escanor at high noon begins to go to fight. And they have a knockdown, drag out, one of the best fights in the manga. Animated horribly in the anime, but one of the best fights in the manga. They go out, and it ends with Escanor winning as he slashes Meliodas pretty much in half with his hand, but also he takes a fall and has from his wounds and is exhausted. And so after that, they hold and knock Meliodas out, and they start finding out a little bit more about Elizabeth, her goddess powers. Her they all awaken, and at that point, Meliodas he wakes up later after his healing, and he was like, and he takes Elizabeth. He's like, I'm out. I have to find a way to save you from your curse. And he died. And he's like, the only way is to become the Demon King. And so he then finally, after all the way, he goes back to the demonic side, the demon side, and in his rightful place as heir to the demon kingdom. And of course, his retainer Chandler, the pacifier demon, is overjoyed to have him, but Zeldris is not exactly, or his brother Estarasa. And so he then threatens them and pretty much exerts his demonic pressure on them until the point where they can't even stand. And he tells them that, you guys will find the commandments for me so I can become the Demon King. And Zeldris, doesn't want to, because he's like, you're a dirty traitor, you left. And he's like, whatever, do something about it, bitch. Like, I'm stronger. And he forces him down. And then he gets behind Zeldris and whispers something in his ear. And this automatically makes Zeldris compliant with Meliodas' request instantly. So at this point, we do not know what he has been told. Shortly after, we see Arthur come in and get Excalibur, which is the sword that has been imbued with the blood of the heroes that have come before him, the chosen heroes. And once he pulls the sword, he becomes the chosen hero of that time, the culmination of those kings. Exerts a great holy presence with his sword and single-handedly pretty much fights Meliodas, Zeldris, and the other the pacifier demon, and I always forget Zeldris' teacher's name, but he fights them all, and eventually, he has the upper hand, but then he realizes that his attacks really didn't have that big of an effect. He is then, after he's saved by Merlin, there's a spell that's put on him that will make the demon control him, and the demon basically makes Arthur commit suicide and stab and stuff. So now he is imbued with that sword is imbued with the chosen king of who is Arthur. So exit Arthur for at least 100 or so chapters. And so we move past this time, and that's when we see a lot of the things. So Meliodas is now have gotten some commandments, and he's now in a demonic cocoon where he is in the middle of a transformation, a metamorphosis. I remember when I first did these panels on that and the reviews on that, I was like, guys, Meliodas will not be the same when he comes out of this. Cocoons being metamorphosis is change. It means he's going to be changing into something different. And at that point, that's when the Sins, Hindi, and all those guys with Stigma, of course, I didn't feel like I needed to go in too much into the Goddess and the Goddess clan coming back, and just they used their physical forms to seal the demon clan back in the eternal coffin. They didn't have physical forms; they were more ethereal beings but they can choose humans or other beings as their vessels. And so they go down to try to fight, and they're like, the only way to do this is to kill Meliodas. But Merlin says, we can defeat Meliodas and get the commandments out of him. So there's a great battle between the Sins, Zeldris, Chandler the pacifier demon, Meliodas' teacher, and Zeldris' teacher, and it's a great fight, which is a lot is revealed. Zeldris has this power that basically this vacuum of power that vacuums people towards him, and at the same time simultaneously slicing them with his sword. Zeldris has been known and said to be the best swordsman in all the demon clan and all the demon world, and so and he's put that on display several times. We never get an explanation for why there's a goddess symbol on the hilt of his sword, but maybe that would be saved for another time, since Zeldris kind of got shorted in the stick. So there's huge fights. Eventually Meliodas does wake up and he becomes the Demon King Meliodas, which he's a grown-up version. He looks more like his counterpart. And during this whole time, we find out that Estarossa, in fact, is not Estarossa at all. He's really Mael, who was the fourth archangel who was supposedly killed by Estarossa 3,000 years ago in the original Holy War. Gother, we found out that Gother, in order to balance the scales and put it into the Holy War, the real Gother, when Meliodas defected to the Stigma, to the Goddess clan, that left a huge power back and a tipping of the scales, and there was no balance. And so in order to have someone, they needed someone as powerful on the demon side as now that Meliodas was no longer demon side. In order to balance the scales, Gother recast Mael in the image of Estarossa to everyone. I knew it, and everyone in the world, and made him believe that he was a demon in order to balance the scales of the Holy War and put an end to it. Now, I don't really see how that would, make a difference in it, but I guess I see where he was looking for the balance. Everyone's about balance. And so we find out that's why Estarossa, Mael freaked out when he was trying to absorb the commandments. He freaks out and his form gets more distorted, and then eventually he turns into this demonic angel-like being with black and white wings. And that is a huge fight, to which he eventually, the Sins gang, and which eventually he is able to become Saiyan again and rids himself of dark magic, but he's broken by the things and atrocity that has been forced to make to do. And this, I kind of feel sorry for this character because he didn't ask for it, and he was forcibly turned into a demon. And this explains why he was never really, why the memories weren't added up, and why he had some of Meliodas memories, and why he thought he was, because he did, as an angel, he did look up to his big brother, although his big brother was Ludicel, not Meliodas. He was, and also as a goddess, he was in love with Elizabeth, but Elizabeth was, of course, in love with Meliodas. So you feel sorry because he's been made to kill his own brethren just to balance the scales in an effort for peace, which didn't even come. So we cut back to the Demon King Meliodas, and there's people love him. He's waifu, he's handsome, he's tall, and extremely powerful. And there's no one that can face him other than Bon. Bon, after Purgatory, Bon went to go look for Meliodas' emotions in Purgatory to try to convince him, even though his Demon King father was holding him hostage. Meliodas in Purgatory, his the emotions that Bon met. And of course, we know the Purgatory timeline, 1 minute equals a year in Purgatory. So Bon, being immortal, has been there for over thousands of years, has gotten super strong. His body has been hardened by the harsh environment that is Purgatory. And they fight and defeat the Demon King in Purgatory, thus falling back in the real world and releasing Meliodas' emotions. So this is the way that they eventually break the hold of the Demon King on Meliodas, because we find out that Meliodas has not really morphed into a Demon King, just the Demon King has taken over his body and has used Meliodas as another vessel. That's why he wanted Meliodas back so bad, because Meliodas was the perfect vessel for it to be the Demon King. And so Meliodas, the emotions are fighting, himself from the inside as Demon King, but while Bon and the rest of the sins are fighting from the outside. And this great Grandos fight goes out, and Meliodas, in his Demon King form, which you can see right here in this picture. It's awesome, and there's a great fight. So eventually, they were able to knock the Demon King out of Meliodas, as he was able to get defeated, as Bon is pounding, beating the shit out of him on the outside. Meliodas is taken to him in the inside, and so after defeating his father within his own consciousness, his father then is exiled from him, and we think is defeated, but then he projects himself into Zeldris, his brother, and this is all the way after Chandler and the other demon have combined into the original demon, who were split by the Demon King when they basically got too caught up in their own hubris. This is after all of that fact as well. And so we see Demon King, Zeldris, keep continuously morphing until he's a taller, demonic version with a beard, and he looks pretty scary. And so this version of Zeldris is murderous, even more so, and it's hard and he's strong. And so there's a big battle between Demon King Meliodas and Demon King Zeldris in the sense, since Meliodas can still access its Demon King power of only, it's in a kid form. After finally defeating Zeldris, saving his little brother, going inside, and it's like, remember what I promised you, I promised you, I'll still hold my promise. And then eventually getting his promise, which he did, release Gelda from her sin. And Gelda comes to visit Zeldris and pretty much snaps him out of it, comes in his consciousness eternally, and they all pretty much pull Zeldris out of the mind control that his father has done, thus expelling the Demon King out of his body. And so pretty much it looks like the Demon King is done. Man, he wasn't. He then pretty much chooses Britannia, the ground of Britannia, as his vessel, and turned into this giant demonic mountain thing, who was then eventually defeated by a super combo attack, full counter of the Sins and Meliodas. And so peace seems like it's come to the Sins. Personally, it should have ended here probably. I know there were a lot of loose skills, but it should have been ended here, and then maybe we should have got special issues or one-shots fleshing out the rest of the story. But it didn't. The copy fooled us, as we think Elizabeth is killed by someone that speaks up, mentions, and it's a crash and a rock falls on, but she's muted last time. We learned that it is no other than all the stories. So we get back to, we see shots of Arthur. At that point, we get to the point where Merlin reveals her true plans and how she pretty much used the Sins to unlock chaos, because she was never satisfied with, after cheating the Demon King and cheating the goddess and getting Infinity Magic, she still wanted happiness truly, because she was too, and this is a big shocker, she was too in love with Meliodas when she first met him, because he saved her from constant studying and the hardships that her family put on her due to that Magic Kingdom Bellion. And so However, that love was not reciprocated, as he then showed up with Elizabeth, and she was hurt by this and could never find happiness until she had met Chaos and she found out about Chaos. And so she dedicated her entire life to unlocking and resurrecting Chaos, who, of course, the man of her choosing to be the king of Chaos and the vessel of Chaos was none other than King Arthur. She then, pretty much puts Chaos in his body, and he awakens, and we don't know yet whether he's going to be a villain, be a friend or foe. He'd start destroying the world with his chaotic power, and we learn that Chaos is this entity that existed before the clans and pretty much gave rise to the clans, the Demon Clan, the God of Clans. But then the Demon King and Goddess, Supreme Deity, teamed up again, like they did against their children, Meliodas and Elizabeth, to seal and defeat Chaos. And so, we know that Demon King is finally defeated, but we still never got a definitive verdict on what happened to the Supreme Deity. And so that's one of the biggest complaints and, mysteries that we do not have solved yet here in the Sins, and who knows. So, there's a big fight, and Meliodas is angry at Merlin for using them, for keeping this a secret, but then he's like, I want you to take responsibility. At this point, we learned that Kath, the old cat that King Arthur has, was in fact a remnant of Chaos, who was concerned with his greed and wanted to consume all of Chaos. Man, this guy then turned into pretty much the cat that we know from Arthurian legend, the giant man-eating cat that Arthur sometimes defeats, sometimes beats. This is the big bad. So, if you had to ask me a few years ago, would I think Kath was going to be the last bad? I would have laughed at you. I think this was a bad move by Nakaba. I do feel like that the Supreme Deity should have been the last big bad, since we know that she had a hand in sealing Chaos. And so now we just have that loose end with the Supreme Deity just out there chilling. Who knows? So how is there still balance? Who knows? So yeah, we hit this fight. Kath, and he takes it too. He bites Arthur's arm off to get some Chaos and morphs even more. And then eventually the Sins show up. They help in the fight, and they didn't spend this time and defeat him. And then Arthur, using his truly awakened Excalibur with Chaos, completely obliterates Kath, who then comes back and Arthur tries to eat her after the Sins has left. And then finally, since he has the power of Chaos, Arthur then pretty much inhales and eats Kath whole with his chaotic powers. And that's the only way. He's like, since you want to eat everything and I can't defeat you, then I'll just eat you. I'll contain it. And so at that point, Kath is then eaten, and then Chaos is then won again, since he was a remnant of Chaos, and Chaos is then won again, contained within Arthur's body. And Arthur wants to use this body, this power, to create a new world, since he lost his kingdom of Camelot, and create a world where it's friendly and safe for everyone. And he wants to rebuild it and use his power in an everlasting kingdom that everyone can be happy and accepted in, and there will be no evil and no fighting and nothing. And Meliodas, after he found out the truth, he's like, Meliodas tells him that's a future that we'll hold you to, and we hope we would love to see it one day. And we're pretty much like near the tail end of everything right here. We had a couple more chapters after that. After they wrap that story up, everybody goes their separate ways. Merlin goes with Arthur to rebuild Camelot and to heal him up. But we also hear, as Hawk is calling out to her, she teleports him to purgatory, and as he almost is about to give hope, he then runs into his big brother Wild, who apparently is still alive, and says, that last fight left me rough, which we saw him get obliterated by the Demon King. But he's like, I still got about 1 million. He said, I only got about 1 million years left, and then Hawk's like, 1 million, that's plenty. And so looks like Hawk got a happy ending and finally reunited with his brother and his family. Although, what about Hawk Mama? Another one of those loose ends. We then see, cut to 18 months later, where we see all of our Sins, or most of them, in their respective kingdoms. Meliodas is then being asked to marry Elizabeth and to become the next king of Leonis, which he says, he will have to travel first and travel around Britannia first to try and just be on vacation and honeymoon. And of course, Barter's like, you good, you gotta do the king. And he was like, no. Basically, Barter, you hold it down until I get back from my honeymoon, and then I'll be glad to be the king. We also see that Elizabeth is pregnant, and so is Elaine. And Balin already has a name for the baby, which he says is Lancelot. And Elizabeth asked Meliodas, and Meliodas decided on the name Tristan. And so there we have it, beginning of the forming of the Knights of the Round Table. Meliodas, being a Knight of the Round Table, and his son Tristan being a knight. And then we also have, of course, Sir Bon, who was also a Knight of the Round Table, and his son was none other than Lancelot, Sir Lancelot, one of the most prominent members of the Knights of the Round Table. And so it'll be awesome to see where they go with this. And we get one more chapter where we actually cut to 10 years later, and it's none other than Tristan's 10th birthday, who is the son of Meliodas and Elizabeth, and it has one green eye, one blue eye, like his parents, respective parents. So we can assume, based off Gother's thoughts, Gother said that he had a impressive power class for his age. We assume that he has demonic and goddess powers, even though as a part of him would be human. She'll awaken her goddess powers before the end of the series. So we see them, and although we get word and we see the other scenes, they show up for the birthday, and we hear that King and Deanne have also had a child, as they comment on how cute Tristan is, but not as cute as theirs. We don't actually get to see their child, and we don't get to see Lancelot either, which I thought was surprising. If this is 10 years and they're friends, and this is 10-year birthday of Tristan, why would Bon not bring Lancelot? They would be friends, right? So who knows? We also get a little bit of hints about where they might go for, because we do know, and we find out that the 7 deadly sins. This is the end, but they will be getting a sequel series called, Knights of the Apocalypse, or the 4 Knights of the Apocalypse, 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse. Which I thought was very interesting and awesome, because there's already a fan manga that's rejected that and has made, Tristan being the son of Wrath, Lancelot being the son of Von, and of course, they have some other. It's fake because they had Escanor and Merlin having a child. But these 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse, they're actually bad guys in the fan manga, and they're trying to create a new holy war. And so, I hope they don't go there with this route. But it would be interesting to possibly see the sons of our heroes and children of our hero become the villains that they have to face. And it's possible because Tristan thought throughout that whole last chapter that Meliodas was a bad guy, and because he had heard all these things, and then finally after putting the memories in his head, he saw that his dad wasn't a bad guy. But even as they look to the future and they're having a talk about what Tristan will be, Meliodas says, "I wonder what type of person he'll grow up to be." I feel like this line was important for a reason, and although it ends happily, it's like sky's ever expanding, and Tristan says he wants to be a 7 deadly sins. I thought it was important about that the thought that Tristan thought that his dad was a villain, and Meliodas says, I can't believe he thought that. It makes me wonder, what kind of person you grow up to be. And I thought it was some heavy foreshadowing, as well as with Death Pierce. Death Pierce mentioning that he wanted to create a kingdom that he could not stay loyal to a kingdom that its king was a demon and his goddess was his queen was a goddess. Many people could not believe this was the first time ever a goddess and a demon had conceived. Zeldris and Gelda couldn't admit it, and I am glad that they gave Gelda and Zeldris a little bit of closure, that even if it was one little panel, but they had obviously come to visit them during the pregnancy. We also see that Death Pierce is still lamenting over his control by Ludicel, and being his friend being killed by Dariere, and so he does not want to stay loyal to a kingdom that serves a demon and a goddess. Also, another note is the Bon and Elaine were the first time a human and fairy had eloped and procreated, and so this is the first time they ever seen a natural birth, as fairies are usually born from trees and flowers. And so Death Pierce, he vows that he is leaving, his job as a knight, and he wants to go to his original home of Edinburgh, which we know is, of course, the kingdom that was destroyed by vampires several years before the Sins, the 7 Deadly Sins series starts. He says he wants to create a kingdom that is, for humans and for humans alone, a human-led kingdom. So more of like a human elitist kingdom. So I feel like this was very much foreshadowing for something to come, whether they're setting Death Pierce up as the next villain of the coming series, because obviously, and we see that Dreyfus and Hindi also say that the next leader has all but been chosen, which is none other than Tristan. So with this little tidbit and Death Pierce leaving, Could they be setting it up for Death Pierce to be leading later in the future series an invasion, a human invasion, such like the like Ro and Stigma did when they murdered, where they turned on all the Stigma and murdered all the giants and fairies during that battle with the in the 3,000 years of the Demon Clan, when they were getting revenge for the time when their village was razed and their parents were murdered by angels and goddesses because they harbored a friendly demon and nursed it back to health. So who knows? Maybe we'll get another and we know with that that humans can have the capability of fighting these other races. So maybe we'll see a future where Edinburgh has risen up in their elitist fascist country that come to invade or go to war with Leonis, who is now a kingdom led by goddess and a demon, and the future a hybrid. And so this is a very interesting tidbit I thought that they did with Death Pierce, and we see that he's still alive, but he obviously has a mission, and that shows that there are many other people that are still not content. Even though there's area of peace, they're still not content with the fact that their country is being led by a demon and a goddess. So kind of like an overbearing presence there. So guys, that's where we ended up, and I do love that we got in the last chapter a tidbit or droppings of what's to come, the future sins, and what's coming next. I do love that we got that, and I thought that was perfect closure, and it was about as great as a closure and ending that you get, considering the circumstances and the last villains and the openings and things that we still have not closed. However, I do, like I said, I feel there was a lot left to be desired. I wish we had gotten to find out more about the plot holes, the supreme deity, things of that nature, more about Meliodas and his ruthlessness as Demon, and what the hell happened to Mael. Happened to Mael and the four archangels. I like to see some closure on those guys. So yeah, man. I mean, what a fantastic series. I really appreciate it, despite all of its flaws, and I can't wait to see what the Four Knights of the Apocalypse will have in store for us. I will be doing probably next week. I'll be doing Four Knights of the Apocalypse. I'll be talking about that and how it was announced last week, and then I'll be talking about some of the real world inspiration for the Knights of the Apocalypse or the Four Horsemen, and I'll delve into that so we can try to speculate about what we might see coming in the next series, centering around the kids of the Sins. So guys, make sure you stay on the lookout for that video, because we're going to talk about Theory. And now like I said, I might start following some of the other manga series again, catch back up with My Hero and Black Clover, and My Hero especially entering a hell of an arc right now with the War Liberation arc. I might definitely cover that as they just suffer the death of a main character there. But guys, this is the Sins, man. It's been a hell of a ride. I can't wait to talk about what comes next with you guys next week. And thank you guys for all being there. I know some of you have been through all three channels. It's been rocky. We need to get back to where we were. But man, I really appreciate you guys. I love you guys. Make sure you subscribe and share. And it's been a hell of a ride with the Sins, and I hate to see it ends, but this is not the end. This is just goodbye for now. And guys, it's your boy Electric Jack. I'm unplugging. Let me know what you thought about the series and the review. Make sure you share your comments in the comment box. And guys, I'm unplugging for now, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.